Tuesday.
Martha gets hers Tuesday.
Okay, very good. Good.
And
Got
I
mine.
was
I
just
got
telling
mine.
Becky, we need to get Becky the link so she can get registered, to get called like we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Nancy and I tried to register and we both got notices that we are put off indefinitely, at least until March.
Probably age wise.
No supply. We qualify, but for several reasons, but they are out of supply now.
Huh.
Wow.
Well, that's weird. So if they're out of supply, what are they calling me today?
Well, I'm guessing that's because they had an allotment for
Yeah.
a certain number already.
Okay.
Hi, Dale.
Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Dale,
there's
did you get your vaccine?
So I'm going to get mine in February 26th.
No, we
Grant.
were talking to Dale. We were asking
Yeah.
Dale Kleppen if he got his vaccine.
Yeah. Was he scheduled?
I don't know. I don't know if he's hearing us.
I'm not sure he can hear us here.
Dale, can you hear us?
Okay, now, click on that, and get that out up there.
His microphone is on. You may have the volume down too low.
Well, I got mine. I'm
Oh,
free.
great.
Great.
Good.
I got mine.
Yeah.
Cheryl got hers.
Yay. Our age does make a difference sometimes.
Yes.
Well, I've found that being older sometimes has its benefits.
Amen.
One thing they don't allow, people don't expect you to act normal. They excuse you a lot of behavior.
It's because we don't.
Oh, Ben, are you
Ben.
saying you just tossed that charade out the window?
Yeah.
And you'd have to define normal.
Yeah, that's right.
Therein
Say,
lies
Doc.
the problem.
You say, Doc, after I get this, will I be normal for the rest of my life? And you say, yeah. You say, well, I never was before. It's like, will I be able to play piano after this surgery? And he said, sure you will. You play it just fine. So, well, it's funny. I never could play it before.
Morning,
Okay.
everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Brad.
Morning, Brad.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Nina.
Hey, Nina.
I've been out shoveling my driveway with snow.
Wow.
How much did you get, honey?
Oh, not only about 3 or 4 inches.
Oh, only about 3 or 4 inches. I'd love to see it.
We haven't had that much yet, I don't think.
No.
You resting Shandong there yet?
But,
Okay, while there's a lull in the action, I'm going to jump in. I hope everybody's well. I'm hearing some good things, so that's really good. Kent, would you fill us in on some of our folks, please, sir?
I'll be glad to. I talked at length with Lucille Cruz and their daughter Jan on Friday evening, and they're still having a tough time right now. And the children have been rotating in and out, trying to help them get through this difficult time, but they are kind of all reaching the end of the limits of what they can do and be off from their work and other responsibilities in other places. So they've asked to put the word out to all of you. If you know of anyone who would be a lead for home companion or home assistance for them, helping them to get around the house and things like that, to please call and let them know about that. And I know that's always been a hard thing to find in the New River Valley, but they really need some extra help right now. So if you can contact either Bob and Lucille or one of their kids, or if you don't know how to do that, let me know and I'll help with that too.
Is
Is
Bob
Um,
at the
Ginger-
is that
hospital?
for house cleaning only, or is that more like a home companion?
No, it's more like a home companion to
Okay.
help them get around the house,
Okay.
not a
because
cleaning.
I was going to suggest Patty Litton for that, but I don't think she can, I don't think she does home companion stuff.
Okay.
What about-
Yeah.
What about, is Bob home from the hospital? I guess he is. Sounds like it.
Yes, he came home Monday, last
Okay.
Monday. Yeah. Ginger Johnson's brother that we've had on our prayer list passed away last night.
Oh,
They told the family yesterday that they needed to take him off life support and he would go quickly at that point. And the family agreed, and that's what happened. So she had not been able to talk to him since January, but they're grateful that he passed peaceably. So want to remember all that family.
Then this was Corona related, Corvette.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yes. Also, Susan Naff, who we've been praying for, was in really bad shape with Corona, and she has been discharged from the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
gosh.
She came home yesterday or last night, although she still can't get up by herself or walk around or anything. She's extremely weak and has to be on oxygen at home, but she's home, so that's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think that's all I have, but Gary, I think you probably have one you want to talk about.
Yes, indeed. Anna Kate called us Friday evening and said that Virginia had tested positive and went to the doctor and did get a confirmed diagnosis of COVID. And she's okay. She's very, very nauseous and very, very weak. Of course, the four of them are having to quarantine for at least 10 days. And so be in prayer for them. They're not doing any of their church activities at all. Will has someone who's going to be in the pulpit for him today, which is really good. We were glad to hear that. So just keep them in your prayers, and they would appreciate it, I know.
Gary and Kent, have y'all talked, has anybody talked about Judy Cox's husband, Tim, who
Right.
passed away?
Yeah, we thank you. We talked about that Wednesday night, but I haven't mentioned it here. Judy King Cox used to be a member here, and some of you know her husband Tim. He had COVID and passed away from it early this past week. His memorial service was yesterday. He was 53 years old, but he did have underlying conditions.
I'm so sorry.
Others. Shanda, how's your mother?
I talked to her yesterday and she continues to improve. And she said to please thank you all for your prayers, that she knows that's what's healing her.
And how are you all doing?
No, we're doing very well. Yeah, we're all out of quarantine. We've been back to work, so it's all going very
Good.
well.
Good, good.
I just
Any
want
others?
to thank everybody for their continued prayers and just
Good.
keep me on the list. Tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning, I report front and center to Wake Forest and see how that surgery goes. I'll let everybody know, but
Keep you in our prayers.
thank you.
Yep.
And don't forget to tell them to do that fancy plastic surgery on the.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
All right.
I lost my my summer bathing suit figure a long time ago. So a 6-inch scar is not going to matter.
Isn't it interesting how our priorities change as we get, as we increase in numbers in our.
Gary, I thought I had one more that I skipped over by accident. Farrah Booth, who sings for us
Yes, thank you.
many times Sundays. She has been, I think, pretty much raised by her grandparents in Franklin County, and both of her grandparents now have COVID. And her grandfather is in the hospital and not doing well. And so she has left the Radford area. My understanding is to go back home and take care of her grandmother, but is terrified both for them and for herself, having to be around them as the caregiver. So we want to be in prayer for Farah right now too.
Hey, guys, good morning. Farah texted me last night and said that her grandfather is now home as well and seems to be doing better. She was really terrified about her grandmother's condition when she got there, but she said she seems to be doing better. And Farah is taking precautions and is doing better herself. So, but she is very, very pleased and honored and humbled that we're praying for her. So please continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary,
Yes.
my brother, who we've had on our prayer list so long, is having his cancer surgery on Monday of next week, not tomorrow, but the following Monday. And I know he appreciates our prayers.
Where is he, Marie? Where will he be having his surgery?
He is having it in Florida.
Okay.
Okay. Any others?
The only thing that I wanted to say was they're now not recommending the cloth masks at all because of the new strains. And they have the, it's called KN, I think, 95 on Amazon, and they recommend that. It's got 5 layers of protection. And you can order them right now on Amazon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Originally it was from China and they did not.
What are those new masks called?
KN95.
Okay, anyone else? Any praises? Did anybody see God this week? Talk about it?
My daughter got COVID and is, I do thank the good Lord that she's doing better now.
Great, great. Thank you, Becky.
Gary,
Yes.
I would just like to say that we really do thank God for you.
Amen.
And all that you do. We just really do appreciate your faithfulness and your ability to get in there and dig in all that material and supply us with not only intellectual information, but spiritual information. So we just are so grateful for you.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't do it by myself.
No.
Okay. Continue to pray for the search committee. We're working hard. We've heard more sermons. We've picked up more metaphors. We've heard stories about people that I would not even believe. You kind of shake your head at some of them. And others are very, very inspirational from young. We've had applications from probably ages 30 up to 60, 65. Most of the applications have been women. But anyway, it's been a very, very interesting, and I'll say for me, and I think Kathy and Dan and who am I going to leave out, would agree with me. It's been a fulfilling ride. It's a lot of work, but it's good work. Okay, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for again coming and walking alongside of us today and sitting beside us as we try to come to a better understanding of your word. We know that that's important because it helps us to gain the nutrition that we need for our spiritual souls, but it also helps us to gain the strength and the energy and the understanding that we need in order to be able to share your word and live out that word in all that we do. We thank you for the fact that we are a family, that we are not just a fellowship of believers, but we are truly bonded, not just with each other, but we're truly bonded with you. And we cherish that, and we're humbled by the fact that you would reach down and touch each one of us in very special ways in our lives. And we give you thanks for that. We know that as a God of love and a God of caring, that you hear our prayers. And we've heard testimonies this morning to the fact that many of those prayers that have been lifted have in fact recently been answered. And we give you thanks for that as well. We know that there are those who are near to us and dear to us are grieving, either through the loss of a loved one or having to watch a loved one suffer. And we would ask that you would be with each one of those who grieve and who are hurting this morning, and those who are trying so desperately to ease the pain and to ease the grief and the suffering that they're enduring. We give you thanks for the fact that you give us the ability to reason and to think and to create. And so we thank you for those who are working so tirelessly to ensure the health of not just people here in our own community, but throughout the world. We appreciate those who literally put their lives on the line in order to care for and comfort those who are having difficulties, either through the pandemic or either through other causes. We ask that you would be with us now, as always, in these moments as we try to draw closer to you in our studies. Give us open minds, because we do want to know, we do want to learn, we do want to understand. But likewise, we ask that you would help us to not just hear, but to listen and to know from what those truths are that you give to us, and take those truths and use them as we go about serving you and being the hands and feet of Jesus, not just here in our immediate community, but throughout the world. And it's in Jesus' name that we lift this prayer. Amen. Okay, open your chat boxes. Everybody remember how to do that? Y'all are fast learners.
So, yeah.
Everybody got it? Miss Becky, would you be our first reader this morning, please? I'm going to post something here in the chat box.
The time, excuse me, the time is fulfilled and God's kingdom is at hand. Repent and believe in the good news.
Isn't that cool? Straightforward,
Love it.
right up front, not a whole lot of ambiguity in there. The words just say really all that they need to say, and that's the beauty of language sometimes. I think we get in trouble when we try to mess things up by making them a little bit fancier than they should be, but these don't leave a whole lot of room for discussion. A fellow by the name of Dallas Willard wrote a little piece, and I put an abbreviated portion of it in the notes for this week. But he talks about the fact when rural electrification was coming in, and actually I can remember that there were places, even as I was growing up, that did not have electricity. In fact, we used to laugh. We'd go visit one of my aunts and uncles and lived way out in what we call the swamp. And every Saturday night, we would watch the LSU football game on a battery operated radio. All right. But in particular, what happened a lot of times when electrification did come to some of these very remote, very rural areas, people were reluctant to accept it. They just could not believe that something like that fanciful electricity could be all that it's said to be. We're doing just fine with our kerosene lanterns and our candles. Thank you very much. And so they had this wonderful, wonderful, life-changing, life-enhancing resource literally at their front door, and they would not accept it. When Jesus came as an adult to begin his ministry, the interesting thing about the way that happened was that he hit the ground running. he realized when he began his ministry that there was not a whole lot of time for him to sit back and think about what he needed to do and how he was going to do it. He didn't even worry, I don't think, a whole lot about the fact that some of the things that he did, maybe even some of the things that he said, might be offensive to some people because he spoke the truth. And he knew that truth will ultimately triumph over falsehoods and evil and all of those other things. And we see a perfect example of the way in which Christ began his ministry as Mark writes his gospel. I'm going to ask a question, and it's the thing that in teaching we call scaffolding. We scaffold back to something that we've already talked about, something that hopefully you've already learned. Are you ready? Okay. What is the one word that I mentioned to you last week that I said is so common to Mark, and in fact, more so than any of the other gospels? One word. Who would like to venture what that is?
Immediately.
Thank you. Thank you. Smiley face to Martha today. I used to always love to get a little gold star from Miss Polly Price, but I don't have any gold stars, but I guess there's probably an emoji somewhere that might do that. Immediately, immediately. And in fact, when we read the opening of Mark, as we have done 2 weeks ago, and as we see again here in the first chapter, it is chock full of stuff. There is no, let's step back and think about this. I think we need to appoint a committee. No, everything happened quick, fast, chop, chop. In the other gospels, they provide a lot of background information about Jesus. Look at what Luke presents before he really gets to Jesus's ministry. And it's wonderful. It's stuff that we really and truly need to know. But in Mark, notice that Jesus just appears. There's no background. There is nothing. There is no, what shall we say? There's nothing that's extraneous there. And in the scripture today, there are 4 men who are going to all of a sudden be in a position where they encounter Jesus, Messiah, Son of God, and they are totally unprepared for it. The master teacher knew they were unprepared. So in his planning and his mind and his way of approaching people, he had it worked out, I'm convinced, because a good teacher always has a plan ahead of time. All right. So he appears to these people, these fishermen, and it's an epiphany, and that's the season that we're in. This is an unveiling. And in fact, here's a definition of epiphany I think that we can probably feel reasonably comfortable with, because it talks about this whole notion of immediacy. Suddenly, all of a sudden, right now, quickly, in the blink of an eye. It's a meaningful thing that happens too. Sometimes with an epiphany, it can be aha, but in another kind of an epiphany, it can be, oh my. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be inspiring, it can be deflating, but it's all of a sudden, and it's something that there is no way we can prepare for it. These 4 fishermen didn't put their boats out in the water thinking, okay, guys, we got to work our nets quickly because this guy Jesus is supposed to put, he's got an appointment going to show up at 10 o'clock. They were going about their business. People who have epiphanies experience those exactly the same way. Just look at the disciples in that upper room after Jesus was crucified, and all of a sudden, immediately, he appeared to them. Wow. Wow. So epiphanies are the kinds of things that can just sort of go, boom, hit us immediately between the eyes. It's something that captures not just our imagination, but more importantly, it captures our understanding. And when Jesus first approached these fishermen, That epiphany was so powerful. It was so overwhelming. It was so compelling. We could use more and more words. Mark tells us that immediately, they left their nets and followed him. I don't know in our society and in our culture today in which we find ourselves, if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I've got a deal for you. You won't believe. Come on, follow me, and I'm going to show you what it looks like." Don't know that I would just jump in on that. Compare that to robocalls, for example. All right, we're confronted with so many different things that can entice us. They look good and sound good, but it's one of those things is no good can come out of something that sounds that good. Nothing is that good. Nothing is that perfect. So when an epiphany happens, it is immediate. When an epiphany happens, a writer whom I love to go to many, many times, Carolyn Lewis, said it can rock your world. It can rock your world. And I think that's true. And the people who have experienced the epiphany of Jesus Christ, their worlds, their lives were forever changed. And by extension, so were ours, even coming up to the present day. Last week, we talked about jobs and callings. Who am I going to pick on here? Lydia.
Yes, what?
Can you have a job without a calling?
Yes.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well,
I'm sorry?
somebody may be working retail at a store just to make ends meet. Wouldn't really be a calling. Some people may have a calling to serve the community by working at Belk's or Walmart, but I would say most of those people are there because there was an opportunity to make some money.
Puts bread on the table.
Exactly.
In fact, in some kinds of situations like that, people don't even enjoy their work. They do it because they have to. Can you have a calling without a job?
How about being a chicken farmer?
All right, that's a good example.
It also doesn't make any money.
Yeah.
But it
All right,
takes up all your time.
Yeah, let's take this thing one step further. Can you have a job and a calling?
Yes.
Absolutely. I can give you a wonderful example.
I said that'd be you.
Yeah. Well, all right, I'll take that. Yeah, the example I have is about 2 days after Maggie was born, 1 pound, 6 ounces in the NICU at Carilion Roanoke Memorial. And Kay and Whit and Lauren and I were there for the nighttime visitation. And for some reason or other, I was left alone with the nurse who was the primary care nurse for Maggie on that particular shift. And I said, I don't understand how you all are able to do this kind of work. I said, it must be so draining, not just physically, but the emotional aspects of it, dealing with these tiny, tiny, tiny little human beings. And what's even harder is dealing with the parents and grandparents who are so worried about this. And I never shall forget, she reached up and patted my cheek and she said, "Oh, honey, it's not a job, it's a calling." Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a calling. Can you have a calling then? We can have a calling without a job. I think I'm looking at a bunch of folks who do. The neat thing about a calling is it's very personal. And it can be inspiring. It can be invigorating. It can be uplifting. It can be so many different kinds of things, because you never know which direction it's going to go and how it's going to end up. Don't you find that to be true? And I really do think these fishermen had no clue what they were doing, other than here is this man and he speaks our language. What did he say to them? All right, I'm going to back up and go forward. There's a wonderful term that I use in training with my first responder folks. It's an acronym. It's a WIFM, W-I-I-F-M. Stands for what's in it for me. And we know that adult learners in particular have to know, why am I doing this? Why should I waste my time with this? And so we spend a lot of time telling these trainers, you better convince them that their time spent with you is going to help them do their jobs better. They might save lives and so forth. Jesus was the master teacher. He came up with WIFMs that were absolutely some of the most powerful I've ever seen anywhere. He used metaphors in ways that were able to reach illiterate people and inspire them and teach them in the most powerful ways. It was amazing. So let's get a picture here. He's on the Sea of Galilee, Lake Gennesaret. It goes by Lake Tiberias and 2 or 3 other names. And he's standing there on the shore, and these guys are out there fishing. And they probably like most of us fisher people. I wish Ginger was here, bless her heart. We're looking for whatever kind of edge we can get. We'll take information from anybody that looks like they know what they're talking about. If they said, quit using crickets and start using shiners and drop them over there in the big hole right next to Mabry's boat landing, Donnie and I'd be off in a flash. Or somebody come up and show you a 5-pound bass, and the first question is, what'd you catch it on? We want to know. We want to hear that language from somebody who's authoritative. Jesus walks up and he says, follow me. That's the first thing. So what he's saying is, tune in, listen to me, follow me, pay attention. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you, and I'm going to use the literal translation from the Greek, I'm going to make you fishers of people. Fishers of people. All right, now in that time, in Jesus's time, fishing was a tough life. It was hard work just in the case of just doing the routine day-to-day stuff of catching fish. But the Roman government and local governments in cahoots with them had imposed huge kinds of taxation and rules and regulations, and just absolutely almost destroyed the fishing industry, which was the lifeblood of those little communities there along the lake. And so it was a very oppressive kind of thing. And as Lydia said, their jobs really became jobs without callings, because they were just trying to get by day to day to day. And here's this man who comes and says, come follow me, and I'm going to show you how to catch people. One of the signs of a good WIFM is that it serves as a hook. And Jesus's hook was, I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to make you people fishers. That got them. The language was there. The authority was there. This man had something they had not seen in anyone else in their whole lives. It was an epiphany. It was one of those overwhelming moments in human experiencing that you could never, ever put into words. And as Mark says, immediately, without hesitation, without saying, Well, I tell you what, that sounds like a pretty good deal, but my wife's going to have lunch on the table here in about 30 minutes, and let me go grab a bite of lunch. And while I'm there, I'll throw a few clothes in my ditty bag and come back, and we'll meet you and we'll go. No, it says immediately they left their nets and followed him. They didn't hesitate. There was no sense of trying to come up with an idea or something that might forestall their leaving. Think about what leaving their nets and following him meant. Boats were expensive, nets were expensive. People spent probably as much time keeping their boats and nets in repair and all of the other tools and equipment that they needed than catching fish. And they left everything, walked away from it, and followed him. We can spend a lifetime asking, why in the world would anybody do that? That does not make any sense whatsoever. That's foolish. But that's what happens with epiphanies sometimes. You don't take a lot of time questioning and asking why. You just go with it. I'm not sure why they accepted the call. I'm not even sure why Jesus chose those men. He did, and they did. That's all I need to know. And the rest is history, and the rest is some of the most chronicled, some of the most momentous change in all of humanity than any other human movement. It's amazing. You just go with it. And it's one of those let what happens, happen. Don't know where it's going to end. Think about Abraham. I mean, we've got some good examples of this immediately thing. Look at Abraham. God called him and said, I'm going to send you to a country you've never been to. You don't even know the name of it. Pack up your bags, get your slaves, get everybody together, load them up, hook them up, let's go. Didn't even give him a map. And immediately he did it. Immediately he did it. And he became the father of nations, just as God promised that he would. Passing along by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. He saw them. Did he have an advance idea that these were some of the first people he was going to call to work and walk with him? I don't know. I don't know. Why was he on the lake at that particular point in time? I don't know. He just did. That's all I need to know. Only thing I need to know is what was the result of it? What was the outcome of it? What happened? Come after me, follow me, go with me, and I'm going to teach you how to catch people, how to hook people. So Jesus was calling these fishermen who probably, as I said, were seeing what their life's work was being more of a job than a calling. Here he is asking them to set aside everything they've ever known, everything they've ever been able to accumulate in terms of material possessions. And you throw into that family, friends, community, the whole thing. But what he was leading them to was not into a place of oppression, but he was leading them literally into what one writer referred to as a network of spiritual kinship. A network of spiritual kinship. And that network of spiritual kinship was identified as being supportive, it was mutual, and it was cooperative. All for one and one for all. Everybody worked together for the good of all. Taking care of each other is paramount in this particular family, this particular community, if you will. And you know what's interesting? Excuse me while I get a sip of tea. What's interesting is back in that day and time, rabbis were itinerant. They moved around for the most part. They didn't move very far, but they were in the business of taking on followers, students, those who might aspire to become priests themselves. Kicker was that they had to work at it. If I wanted to be attached to a particular rabbi, I had to seek him out and make application, you follow it? But look what happens here. The rabbi calls them. Jesus saw something in these men that was special. And he called them without hesitation. And as we read through the rest of the callings of the other disciples, we see that he acted in exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. Follow. The word follow suggests going someplace. My Uncle Durwood used to say, you stay close and follow me and we're going to catch some frogs. Jesus said, follow me and I'm going to teach you how to catch people. Become a real special fisherman. Fishing for people. That carries with it a lot of implications beyond just the whole notion of fishing. You know, a lot more than just the act of it, of throwing a net. I've got a great picture of Bruce Van Arsdale throwing a little net to catch some bait fish. He and I were going striper fishing back before Christmas. And I started to put it on here to show you because that's the kinds of nets that these guys were using, but much, much larger. But those skills of throwing nets, of being able to know where the fish were, to know what kind of baits were absolutely going to give you the very best results, given that situation, given that species of fish, time of day, temperature, all of that. Jesus said, I'm going to teach you how to do all of that. Don't have a textbook. I don't have a textbook. We don't know what those fishermen were expecting when they decided to follow Jesus. We don't know, maybe they thought, hey, get to travel around the country, meet a lot of different people, maybe even get into some really exciting stuff. All right. But what they found out is that what they thought in their minds was totally the opposite, because they found that when they followed Jesus, they had to pay a price. And that price came in a number of different forms. For example, they would get kicked out of towns and villages. They would find themselves gleaning in fields. They would find themselves even in physical danger from people who were angry at what they were doing and what Jesus was saying. If they aspired to really learn from this Jesus, this rabbi, as they came to call him, they were surprised there too, because he did not teach them the law as they had been taught all of their lives, and how he did not stand up and pontificate about the law. Rather, what they learned instead was looking at their traditional beliefs and holding them up and examining them very closely and challenging some of the practices that they had followed for many, 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 many years. So what would happen? They would find themselves seated at a banquet with tax collectors, business people, wealthy people who were considered sinners, unclean by priests and others in that day and age. They would be serving poor people, nasty, dirty, poor people on a hillside. Jesus taught them that the kinds of people that they had been taught not to like were exactly the people that God loved and favored the most. He literally took their world and their system of beliefs and turned it upside down. And when that happened, it made them look at themselves in ways in which they had never done so before. And it's my opinion, absolutely and totally, that they never really got it until after the resurrection. I don't think they ever really solidified in their minds and in their souls what they had experienced for 3 years, what they had heard, what they had seen, and really internalized that they had been in the presence of God. So we've talked about a calling. We've talked about jobs. Those fishermen left everything behind, but what about those who were left behind? What about Zebedee, the hired workers who had been working with these guys for their livelihood? What about all of the others who followed Jesus so faithfully then and now, but are not called to this life on the road? What about us? What about us? As I said, we fishermen look for the edge. When we were in Baton Rouge and I was doing my doctoral work at LSU, I came into contact with some real diehard fishermen. And we would go fishing different places. And so 3 of us got together one time. One of them was a 200% Cajun. And we decided we were going to go fish this huge lake that was created by the damming up of the Sabine River, which divides Texas and Louisiana. They made a huge reservoir called Toledo Bend. And people were catching fish, particularly big bass, like crazy. We spent 3 weeks, count them, 1, 2, 3, getting prepared for that. We drove almost 5.5, 6 hours to get there. We caught 1 fish. I caught it. We were there 3 days. I caught 1 fish. I was the only one of the 3 of us that did. They called me a male witch. That was a big fish. It was a nice one. I say that to say, about a week later, we got together and went fishing in the Atchafalaya Basin, which is only about 20 miles from Baton Rouge. Big open water area. You've seen pictures of it, I know. And we caught more fish than we could ever even think about. Big fish, big bass. You don't have to go 1,000 miles away to exercise your calling. That's a great phrase. You've all heard it. Grow where you are planted. Grow where you are planted. And it doesn't mean your own growth, which certainly is implied in that, but grow also means catch fish. Fish for people where you're planted. When we accept that calling, things change for us. Change in different ways than perhaps we may even feel really comfortable changing. We pay more attention to people on the margins, the outcasts, the hungry, the poor, a person from another culture, a person who's been disenfranchised for any number of different reasons. the mother of small children who has been abused and set aside and treated unhumanly and unmercifully. We challenge the status quo. We don't accept the fact that, well, we've always done it this way. But what we find is if we keep doing it the way we've always done it, there's not going to be a whole lot of change. Like the definition of insanity, doing what you've always done and expect something to be different. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We seek justice. We seek equality. We seek the notion of treating people as God designed people, treating people as God treats people. He's no favorite of persons. He treats us all alike. We live kindly among our friends, among people within our community. We care deeply for our families. We allow our faith and our assumptions to be upended by new ideas and new understandings of how those are and how they can play out in our lives and what do they mean for us. Mary Ann's words were so very kind about my teaching, but I got to tell you, you've heard me say it before, and I'll keep saying it. I get more out of this than you do, and I'm ashamed of that. Because once we come face to face truthfully and in depth with God's word, we challenge our beliefs, we challenge our understandings, and we grow. We grow. We tread lightly on the earth. We take seriously God's admonition that we're to take care of his creation. And we're serious about that. We don't fool around. We live it. We don't just say it. And then when we think about our own church, we see our God-sized dreams as being our North Star, the thing that leads us to where God wants us to go and wants us to be. And it begins with being the hands and feet of Jesus. Can we do all of that from home? You bet you. You bet you. We're limited with the pandemic. Yeah, no question about it. Kathy Lester is just chomping at the bits to go down to the Christian church, used to a Christian church, and serve meals to people and have all of you join her in that. Lydia Warren is just chomping at the bits to be out and visit, as is Mary Ann and Marie. I could go on and on and on. I'm living for the day we can have a fish fry. Get everybody together. Just have a good time. Just being with people, just being with each other, and embracing others who are not members of our immediate family in that. Jesus calls us. Him says, by his mercy. Jesus calls us, and he does so with a very specific idea, plan, roadmap, whatever you want to call it, for what he wants us to be. And it's an interesting thing when you look at the history of the Christian church down through the ages, in its earliest kind of format. Those who were in the professional ministry level, whatever you want to call them, whatever title they had, bishops and so forth, were considered to be super Christians, and the laity was just kind of down there. Then came this guy named Martin Luther, and he said, that ain't right. He did it in German, which is probably prettier. But he said, that's not right. That's not the way God intended. God calls everybody. He does not limit his call to just those who put on fancy robes and can speak the liturgy and can do all of these other vaunted things. He looks for people who are willing to throw the nets, cast the nets. And the search committee, we talk about casting the net widely, seeking. And that's what God calls us to do. but he does it into an uncertain future. Like I say, like with Abraham, he didn't tell him where he's going to wind up. He just said, I'm sending you to a land. When we go into a calling, we don't know how it's going to end. I think in some cases it may not end till we get to heaven and hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant. God's given us the gifts. He's given us the talents, the abilities, the resources. Good Lord, aren't we blessed? Aren't we blessed beyond measure? And Jesus is the only one, the death and the resurrection, who can lead us into that life of calling, that life of service, that life of living out Christ in the community. I like the being the hands and feet, but I also would include with that the heart and soul of Christ in the community. So let's take a look at our callings. Every one of you have at least one. I know because I've seen them in action. Is God calling us to do more? In this calling, he's prepared me for it. Perhaps in that preparation, there might be something else that I can do. So it's incumbent upon us to stay tuned in and to listen for that still small voice that still speaks to us. It speaks to us all the time. Sometimes it can come in the smile and the laughter of a child, sometimes in the lyrics of a song. Sometimes it can be just in observing people living out their lives. But at some point, and maybe many points, we're going to get hit with an epiphany. And again, in the words of Carolyn Lewis, it's going to rock your world. Hang on. That's all I've got this week. God bless you. I love y'all. Y'all talk now.
Gary?
Yes.
Lydia here. As you were talking about the fishermen, I guess I had an epiphany. I don't know. And I'm sure it's something that everybody else has already observed. I'm just a slow learner. But the first people that the angels came to were the stinking, dirty old shepherds that nobody liked, but had to abide by. Now, Jesus is coming to the fishermen, stinking old fishermen that nobody liked, but they had to deal with. Then he went to the tax collector that nobody liked, but they had to deal with. And I'm just sitting here thinking of the people that we really would rather not deal with, but we do because God loves them and God reaches out to them. So anyway, there, for whatever that's worth.
I agree with you 100%. And in fact, that's what a lot of people were dumbfounded out of Jesus's ministry just for those reasons. He associates with sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes and all of these other people. No, we don't do that.
Have any of you seen the series, The Chosen?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
Well, it goes right along with what you're teaching, and it's a video. It is so good. It's not like any other movie or anything you've seen of the life of Christ. And what he does, the first series, with the money that comes from the CDs or DVDs, they're going to make the second series, and they'll go on like that. He's not making any money off of it, but it is so good.
One of the things that is really good about it is that they have a discussion of the people, among the people who were their reference people for the different sessions that they do. And the guy who is the producer or the director is relatively young, and he has a Catholic priest, a Messianic Jewish fellow, and an evangelical who teaches at one of the seminaries as his people that he goes to, and they sit and talk about each one of these sessions, about what the director got right and what he got wrong. And it is really eye-opening. It is fantastic to see how each of these different faiths view the material in each of the movies.
You can go on YouTube and watch it for free. But if you order one, you help sponsor the next one.
I just posted in chat, it's $24.95 on DVD from Amazon.
Let me say though, if you order it from Amazon, it doesn't, Amazon gets the money. It doesn't, it's, you have to go
Got it.
to the actual site to furnish the money for the next one.
So you're saying go to the producers?
Thechosen.com.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But it's very different from anything you've seen before.
I watch a little bit of it on YouTube
Mhm.
and then.
Shirley, what are the topics? What are the topics when you say the
It
chosen?
starts, he's going to go through the complete life of Jesus on when they go through the 8 series. But it starts out where Gary was talking today when he chose the fishermen and the tax collectors involved. You won't believe the tax collector. It's just very different and very good. I think it'll really get you thinking.
Thank you so much for that.
You're
I'm
welcome.
gonna look for that.
We know that not everybody that Jesus called came. There was a rich young ruler that had excuses. There were other people who had excuses and wouldn't go.
Very true. Just as there are people who today are called and won't do it. Well, it's like the illustration I started the lesson with. Here these folks had power that they could never even imagine and would not accept it in electricity. And here they have opportunity for a life they could never imagine. And it's all they've got to do is accept it.
That's part of the problem with all of us. We get so comfortable with what we have that when we're offered something different, we're got a hand up saying, wait a minute, I like what I got. I don't think I need this. But if we're open to it, it really is, whatever it is eye-opening.
Can I pose a question to everybody? I posed this question years ago when I was teaching Sunday school at another church. It's easy for us as Christians to reach out to the poor people, the underprivileged, and so on. How do we address, as Christians, how do we address the tax collector? For example, let me give you an example. Let's say we had been overrun by some foreign power and something, and some members of our community collaborated with the foreign power. And they made a lot of money doing this from graft and so on. And then one day we look out the window of our church or our Sunday school and see this man pulling into our parking lot with his oversized SUV, and he begins to unload his family. Now, do we greet him at the door, or do we say, "You're not wanted here"? I mean, I don't expect anybody to answer that question, but I just wanted to pose it.
I'll answer it. We don't
Okay.
have the option. Yeah, Jesus said, all,
Yeah.
everybody, and that's no limit. I mean, it may just absolutely go against the grain of everything that we know and believe and feel. But Jesus died for that kind of person just as sure as he did for the holy and the sanctified. And
Well, it's like he said, he came to heal the sick, right? He said the well don't need it. It's the sick.
And if we're going to be the hands and feet of Jesus, we have to do what he did, and he certainly approached them.
And I think that's what Lydia was pointing out. That's the example that Jesus set at the very beginning of his ministry. He went to the most despised, those who were on the fringes of society, those who were looked down upon, for the people with whom he was the closest in a personal way. I think that is a huge, huge image. I do.
Those people, I think, are the most open to Jesus and his message. The people who got it don't think they really need it, and they're resistive.
And I think it's what you were saying too. They don't want to give up what they think they have.
Right.
Because it does require that.
I go back to when Cheryl and I first were going to go overseas, and it meant my getting out of my medical practice to do that. And one of my fellow physicians said to me, "Why in God's name would you do that?" And I'm sorry that I wasn't on the ball at that point. I should have said yes. But, but I missed it.
I worked with a guy who used to introduce me to, I mean, he was not an atheist, and he was not even an agnostic. He just was a reluctant follower, I guess. He's just what we were talking about. He didn't want to give up what he had. And on several occasions, he and I we worked very closely together. I just loved him to death. And he would introduce me. He said, "This is my Jiminy Cricket." My Jiminy Cricket.
Conscience.
Yeah. And so, I turned to him later and I'd say, you can be exactly the same way. Why do you want to continue to be an old horse's patoot when you could really? Okay.
That could be the theme for a story. The Jimmy.
Oh boy, could it ever?
Horse's patoot.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I use French and when I speak. That's my Northeast Louisiana upbringing. You all got me putting this lesson together. Brought back images of King's Dump and Lake Louis and all those swamp lakes that I grew up on. So you all have a great week. Stay safe. Stay warm. It's gonna snow on Thursday. So let's go to church. I love you all.
I love you, Gary. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Who was it?